Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee. It is 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, September 11th. Roll call. President Kuda, member.
Here.
Vice Chair of the Planning and Development Committee, Mr. Cobb, is excused, and the Chair, Davita Russell, is here. So we're going to move forward with legislation referred to our committee. And at this time, I'm going to turn over ordinance 175-2025, the first reading, over to our Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Sam. Take it away.
Thank you, Vice President and Chair. So just brief background, a little over a year ago, well, further step back, the city has approximately 300 properties that we own, and 175 of them or so are vacant, meaning vacant lots. And one of the most pressing issues that I know the community has faced, like a lot of Rust Belt cities, is filling in those vacant lots with homes. So many of our neighbors have done this, South Euclid most recently, and certainly when I talk to folks around the community, it's one of the most important things that people are looking to see are homes built on those lots. There have been a couple of attempts to do that in the past couple of years, and most recently, about a little over a year ago, we issued what was called a request for expressions of interest. We wanted to see who was out there, who was interested in these properties, and we got a really good response to that. And then long story short, that went through some ups and downs. There were some questions that council had about, the process and the pricing. And we sort of have a reset on that whole process. But in the meantime, the mayor really wanted to get at least two of the entities going. And that's what these two ordinances are about, which are two separate groups that are looking to build on what amounts to how many properties total?
I was told there'd be no math.
65
65 total.
65 of those 779 total. So the first ordinance, which is 175, relates to Future Heights and Rebuild Cleveland, and then the second one is YRM. I know representatives from Rebuild and Future Heights are here, and probably the best thing for the committee purpose is to hear from them. Sort of their background, what they've done, what they are planning to do, and then from there.
That's great. Well, I can jump in and then turn it over to Sam. Is that okay?
You jumped in.
All right, cool. So I'm Lee Chilcote. I'm with Future Heights, and just a little bit of background on us. One of the things that we do is housing revitalization. We have a program called Future Homes that renovates distressed houses. We received an ARPA allocation from the city that is allowing us to, and then we also purchased two vacant distressed homes from the city of Cleveland Heights. And that ARPA allocation is allowing us to rehab at least those two homes and get a housing program started again. Those are on 3520 Bainbridge and also 3392 Altamont. In terms of we're ready to proceed with those houses. We're drawing up construction documents and submitting for permits pretty soon. In terms of the new infill housing, this is a longstanding partnership with Rebuild Cleveland that goes back a couple years before I got here. The goal is to build new contemporary infill housing on these vacant lots. The focus of our partnership is on the Kane Park and Cedar Lee areas. Middle income housing, starting in the 300,000s, focus on obviously bringing homeownership and owner occupants to the city of Cleveland Heights. Future Heights' role is to purchase the lots.
You're welcome.
Folks.
Hello.
Help organize a community engagement process around the design and the building of the homes. As the home designs are approved, we would purchase the lots and then transfer them to Rebuild Cleveland. Rebuild would handle the construction and sale of the homes, and Future Heights would remain engaged throughout the process to answer questions, solicit feedback, and get input. And I will turn it over to Seth Task to talk about his vision for the new homes.
Sure, thanks, Lee. Well, first off, let me I'll take a long step back. I spent my childhood sledding on Kame Park Hill. My father and my two aunts graduated from Heights High. I spent my early 20s getting water dripped on me in a basement on Lancashire, living behind Obama Theater. I spent several shows in the green room at Obama Theater as my mom did community theater there for many, many years. I've spent my life in Cleveland Heights. I'm a former resident, and as a realtor, I sell Cleveland Heights every day. So I have a lot of history here in Cleveland Heights, and I have. In driving around and selling, houses through the mortgage meltdown and seeing the vacant lots for all this time has been was one of those things that was just sort of eating at me, and that's all through Northeast Ohio. Really, it's not just Cleveland Heights. But about 5 years ago, a couple partners and I formed Rebuild Cleveland for the purpose of creating affordable workforce housing in a sustainable way, throughout the area. And Cleveland Heights has really always been one of our target areas. I have served on Future Homes, by the way, for I don't know how long. We've served together on that committee for a long time, probably 6-7 years. I've served Future Heights. And I've watched 2 other developers come and go. And it was probably one of the reasons why it burned a fire in me to get going and do something about it. So we formed a company, and we focus on modular construction. If you've been watching the news, the city of Cleveland is focusing on modular construction. I've actually been intimately involved in that process with the city of Cleveland. I've served on the committee that's helped pick the factory that's going to be built in Cleveland. The homes that we're building right now are built out of Champion in Western Pennsylvania, but we'll explore other factories as well. One of the most important things I think that's key for Cleveland Heights, and one of the things that I think some of the mistakes that had happened in the past with other developers who had been offered these same lots before is I don't think there was enough community engagement. I feel like council is very keen on understanding what the community wants. I know I, as a builder, want to build what the community wants, and that's part of our process. So part of our process in going through building these lots is to engage Future Heights. I believe in a strong CDC. Part of our partnership is that we will actually be contributing part of our proceeds of each sale to Future Heights. So we will be helping to fund your CDC through our development. And that's Future Heights will help engage the community. And in the first sort of 4 months, after the legislation is passed, help us design fully entitled designs for the community. So that think of it as all of these lots being one sort of scattered site subdivision. If you go out into the suburbs and you want to build a new house, you're going to drive into the development, you're going to go to the model. In the model, they're going to show you all the different, elevations that they can produce for you. You're going to design your home and then you're going to build it. You're going to pick your lot, you're going to build it. That's sort of what we envision for this community is we're going to build a model. You can come in, you can see the 5 or 6 different designs that have been, helped by the city to design. The building department will have all full architectural drawings. We'll go through the proper design channels through ARB and planning, get them all fully designed, approved. And then people will be able to say, oh, I like this colonial. I'd like to put that on this lot on DeSoto. Or I like this ranch and I'd like to put that on this lot. And we'll have an office. My Berkshire Hathaway company is putting an office on Taylor Road. We'll have a design center in that office. And it'll be really a great experience, I think, for the community. It'll be really a range of prices. So, I mean, I have a 900 square foot ranch actually that we have designed right now. It's 907 square feet, 2-bedroom ranch, age in place type product that we're building 4 of in Cleveland. in the next 2 quarters. And I don't know if that's something that Cleveland Heights is gonna want. We'll see through the engagement. But all the way up to a 2.5-story colonial that will be brand new, but you'd have to really look at it driving down the street to realize that it wasn't built maybe 100 years ago, just in today's design. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see what the community wants. But I think we're not looking to change the entire look and landscape of Cleveland Heights. We want to build product that integrates within the flow of the architectural style. Greg Soltis, I don't know if any of you know Greg. He's an architectural designer. He's working with us. He's done a lot of projects in and around the area and is working with us on the architectural design elements of the homes. And he'll be involved in the process. With that, I can take any questions.
So modular homes can be built in any style.
They can, yeah. They're just so. It's a good question. So the benefits of modular, more than anything, a lot of times there's a preconception that modular construction is cheaper. It's not cheaper, not necessarily cheaper. It can be less expensive, okay? But it's honestly a better product when it comes to the sustainability factors and almost the strength of the home. Because it number one, it's built to travel down the road, right? So, in sections. Most new construction today is almost panelized too, right? So, if you saw a Ryan home or a Pulte home or any of these mass builders today building homes, a truck comes down and the walls are built. They just come and erect them and put them together. Modular comes in sections, right? So, the last house we built was 2 sections. It was a ranch home, 1,494 square foot ranch, in 2 sections. They're already drywalled, plumbed, electric, it's all run, and they're put together, and you're doing some minor touch-ups inside the house. And sometimes we're finishing flooring. If the factory won't provide us like granite countertops, we'll do that ourselves. There's other minor things that we'll do ourselves in the house. But what that provides is, number one, you're talking about a product that's not built out in the elements. And in Cleveland, if you've ever, seen something built, through the winter or even in the springtime or the summer where it's raining, it's never going to rain inside my houses. Okay. I sort of laugh sometimes when I'm driving around the city. I see new construction and I'm, driving around over the weekend and I see this huge structure of townhomes being built and there's no roof on it yet. And yet it's pouring. And I'm like, that's not going to happen in my house. In my houses. So, they come, I could show you a time-lapse video if you want to see one, but, in 4 hours, the house comes, it's craned onto the foundation. The foundation is built 1 to 2 weeks prior to the arrival of the structures, set on the foundation and locked in 4 hours.
So no basements in these.
Full basements.
Oh, they are full basement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Modular has to be on a crawl space or a basement. Modular does.
Okay. And so again, you can, ranch, colonial, bungalow, you do them. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there an economy, because these come in sections, is there an economy of scale on this? Like, one who's not in the business would think, maybe that doesn't matter as much with modular homes, but you're doing 46, is that right?
So the economy of scale, Tony, occurs when you're doing many at the same time. So if, in other words, let's say I'm building 2, and by the way, we will try to do that. So if like somebody, let's say, you're ordering a house and you're ordering a house and they're going to be next to each other or on the same street, or one street over, I will be able to use the same crane on the same day.
I see.
Okay, and so that saves me $2,000 per house. And so there's economies of scale there. There's other economies of scale if I'm doing townhomes, like if I'm doing row housing. And some of the lots in our section will lend themselves to sort of single family townhomes.
Contiguous lots, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're either contiguous lots or, definitely contiguous lots.
Yeah.
But sort of in an area like there's a couple on Euclid Heights Boulevard where I mean, those lots are in between two townhomes, you know, so
Right.
it stands to reason we would do townhomes there.
Yeah.
On Lee, there's some parcels that lend themselves to that, so. Part of the RFEI was for us to provide an opportunity for single-family duplex and middle neighborhood sort of townhomes, and we have designs for all of that. I'm building townhomes in Cleveland, in North Collinwood, this year, 6 units that are attached, and they're basically 3 duplexes put together. So we have duplexes designed that we will present to the community for them to see, because you know, somebody might want to buy a duplex and rent the other side out. We also would explore ADAs. I mean, you know, we could do, you know, we could do a nice home on the front. Some of these lots are relatively deep, and we could put you know, a small home on the back that could be you know, an ADA for an elderly family member, maybe a small
In
ranch.
an ADU?
Or ADU, I meant,
Okay.
sorry.
I just want to make sure.
ADA, ADU.
Well, I see
Too
what
many
you mean.
acronyms.
Yeah.
Will you be allowed to get anything from HUD? Because I know HUD is actually moving towards the modular homes. When I went to the League of Cities,
Oh, did you go to that?
I think it's a great opportunity to be educated on municipality when it comes to council and mayors to be there. And I understood that they are moving more towards modular homes and giving funding and stuff for those different projects.
Yeah, so there is federal funding towards modular. It's sort of tricky how some of it is. There's also state programs like the Welcome Home Ohio program, which we could potentially work through a city land bank, you know, for those funds. It's going to be interesting though, the use of those funds, how they're tied to different AMI thresholds. Certainly happy to explore those types of options, you know, other things that we can explore. And again, we want to be able to provide the community the types of selections that they sort of want also. You know, if somebody wants like an EV ready garage, or other you know, green components. Our houses, by the way, come with an extremely strong HERS rating, which is a green rating system. So the houses that we build all meet an enterprise green standard. So when we're building in the city of Cleveland, the houses we build there have to meet the Cleveland Green Building Standard, one of 4 different rating systems.
Okay.
So they're extremely efficient. Like the walls are 2x6 construction, not 2x4. It's R22 insulation in the walls and R49 in the ceilings, which is you know much more advanced than what this climate zone requires as a minimum code construction.
What complaints do you hear about modular homes? Because I understand the advantages, but what do you?
So you know the more than anything, the complaints it's not so much complaints, it's more
Criticisms.
lack of knowledge.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
so
They come from just not knowing.
yeah,
what-
they'll like somebody will say, "Oh, well, that's a mobile home." I said,
Okay.
"Well, that's
Yeah.
not the same." You know, it's
Okay.
so like every house built in a factory is not the same, right? And there's a differentiation between manufactured construction and modular construction. A manufactured home, by definition, is built with a smaller rim joist and set on a chassis, which makes it something that you can move, but you can also take that type of home, set it on a foundation, permanently affix it to the foundation, and you wouldn't tell the difference. Everything above the rim joist is the same.
So the ones in South Euclid that were built on Greendale and those other streets, what I know they're not modular, but what?
So I wasn't involved in those. I had sold during their Green Neighborhoods Initiative back in the, you know, when Sally Martin was there years ago.
Yeah.
They did some new construction. It was conventional construction. I don't know about.
I'm talking about last year.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't see them.
Okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's Brian Homes, so I don't know what they.
Oh, that's Summers. What built those?
Yeah, and
Yeah. That's panelized construction.
okay. Cause they put them up fast.
Very.
I can say that.
Oh, yeah.
And they weren't modular, so.
No. And I could, well, I don't wanna. Our homes will be better built.
You like the quality.
I just know our quality is better. I mean, did you come to, I don't know if anybody came, I did when we built the one on Colgate in Cleveland, we had sent it. Jim Petrus had come.
Okay.
He's been to it. I mean, if you walk the houses that we build, there's not a creak. I mean, you walk up the stairs and it's like they've settled 100 years ago. You know, there's not, I mean, they're just extremely strong, built extremely well. You know, there's just the difference between 2x6 construction and 2x4 construction. Just think of the strength of that.
Yeah, right.
It's just such a stronger house. But so we want houses that are gonna last another 100 years. We don't wanna build something that's poor quality.
So you're gonna build 46?
Well, it'll actually be more than that because some of those lots lend themselves to a townhome concept.
Mm-hmm.
And so, perhaps on some of those lots, it might be 2 lots that are 6 units.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be about 60 units,
60.
depending on how.
Is there a time frame for
Um,
completion? And if it's not completed, the whole 65 for the vacant lots, is there a provision for that?
Yeah, there is. So in the agreement, and there were so the legislation that you received, there has been some modifications. Because we saw it. We saw it like the Friday morning before you guys saw it. So one business day we saw it. So we did make some changes to it that are nominal. I don't think any of them were that bad.
Okay.
But it's a 5-year completion.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, from the time it's approved to the time we finish the last unit is 5 years. Purchase, I think we have to close on the lots within 3 years.
Yeah, 3 year to draw down the lots and 5 years to complete.
Correct. And as sort of Lee's point earlier, we intend to get all the designs, most of the designs, save the multifamily projects, right? If we're gonna do townhomes, that's a different approval process that requires a lot more architectural, engineering, planning, et cetera. So to do those types of projects will take a little bit longer for us to sort of figure out. But in the first, 90 to 120 days, we're going to work with Future Heights very quickly to get a number of designs put together and through the building department and through planning.
Is there a monitoring piece attached where we will be able to monitor 3 years to 5 years completion and if there's any vacant lots left afterwards and what happens there?
When you say we, do you mean
The
council?
city.
Oh, okay.
And we provide updates to council on, the progress of.
I'm just making sure that we have, if he's purchasing 45 lots and he has a 3 to 5 year completion date, but we're monitoring that to make sure that's moving forward. And then after the 5 years, if there's still vacant lots and nothing's built on it, what is the
So
city's?
if they don't draw down lots
Mhm.
after 3 years, they aren't entitled to move.
So they're
forward
only
with
drawing
things.
so many at a time?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha. All right.
I just wanted to add, one of the reasons why it's a bit flexible is because you can answer for yourselves, but our understanding is that the demand may fluctuate. So there might be 40 people that right out the gate, wanna have houses built and maybe it gets done in 2 years, or it might take some time for it to catch on. So that's why it's built a 3 to 5 year period.
And the specific lots that people choose might change. So when you do a development, some people might like the back of the development versus the front of the development. It really just depends. So like to say, well, we're gonna buy these specific 12 lots in the first 12 months might not be the first 12 that sell.
Mhm. No, I just wanted to make sure that we had a monitoring system in place for that so that we don't are left with vacant lots that nothing is built on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Lee, what's your role?
What's the role of Future Heights?
Yeah,
Community engagement, to help organize meetings, to get resident feedback and work with Seth and Rebuild Cleveland on that.
so are you like marketing in a sense, or just?
No, we're not marketing, we're working with Rebuild to take the homes through the approval process.
But when you say community engagement, I'm just going back, what does that look like?
That looks like meetings with neighbors, community groups to solicit feedback on the design of the homes.
Got it, okay.
We anticipate setting up like a meeting at maybe Noble Library or other places throughout the city. Is that bad?
No, I'm sorry.
We met, I will tell you, this started for me, by the way, 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? We were there.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. We first met with, what block club is that? The Flag House is what I was calling.
Yeah, Boulevard Neighbors.
Boulevard Neighbors, yeah. So we had done a presentation there. It was like winter of 23, I think. Was when we did that a long time ago. But we want to do those, and that was just preliminary. So these next ones would be, we would have, our design team, and we would, bring out some boards. We would show different, elements, architectural elements, and ask the community for feedback and talk about things that they would want designed into the houses.
I'm curious, do you have some of your product out already in Cleveland?
We do. I don't know. I'll show you one thing. That's okay. So one thing I'll tell you is Future Heights owns a house on Altamont, and they are going to sell that to us, and then we're going to build a house on it, regardless of this
Is
legislation.
that the one that has to be demolished?
Yeah,
As a model home then?
Well, no, that won't be the model because that's that house is way down Altamont, and I want our model to be closer to the office.
Okay.
I can't remember which lot it was. Do you remember which lot, Matt? It's very close to Taylor. I don't know, it's on DeSoto or Altamont, and it's very close to Taylor. That where we're going to build a model, so that people, and that one will have, through most of the building process. So you can actually come in and
Look at it.
and walk a house.
It's smart.
Yeah.
So Tony, do you have any more questions for them for this piece of legislation?
No, it's not,
We're not gonna move it out of committee because Mr. Cops is not here, and then we need the updated version of the ordinance. So I just wanna make sure you have any
no,
more
you
questions.
actually, you asked two of my questions.
Oh, okay.
And then I had one question about Start Right, but that's not appropriate for this moment.
So this is a design that we're working on right now for the Altamont house, which is a house that we could include in the designs for these. This is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,545 square foot colonial with a full basement and a 2-car detached garage. We're pulling from sort of colonial revival designs, and this particular elevation, we've created it in 3 different designs based on some old colonial revival styles. And we can actually produce, the siding is easy. What we intend to do is to create 4 to 6 different floor plans and architectural styles, and then get 3 to 5 different variations of siding colors and whatnot, so that the architectural review board and planning can have them all approved ahead of time, so that you can pick and say, well, I love this one, I like this one, I want to put it on this lot, and it's already through the process. So it's quicker for us to get. That's how we can achieve, hopefully achieve a faster build time than what's on there.
Okay, well,
So how
thank
much
you
would
so
that
much.
cost?
So, well, Do you want granite countertops or Formica countertops? Do you want?
I'm not willing to go that far, but just a ballpark.
Ballpark on this one is gonna be
Builder grade stuff.
low fours.
Okay.
On that one. And we'll design some smaller ones.
And how many square feet is that one?
1,545. I can show you the floor plan if you want.
No, we got go.
I
Okay, so thank you for
Thank
that
you.
presentation.
My pleasure.
Just letting you know, we're keeping it in committee because Mr. Copp's not here, our third committee member. And we want to take a look at the updated legislation first, okay?
Thank you very much.
So I'll schedule a meeting before the 15th so that we can discuss it based on his schedule, so we can make sure it's ready for the following meeting on the 15th.
Can other comments be made or in closing out this piece?
I'm closing out this piece.
So any comments related to that, how are they to be made?
Well, basically, this is through the committee, but go ahead, I'll let you make a comment.
Well, again, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Sharon. Again, my name is Tom Stone and owner of TK Stone Enterprise. Certainly a developer, a resident in the city of Cleveland Heights, proud to say that. Actually live on Berkeley, so and so really my concern is related to the actual process of now this legislation, and this somewhat impacts certainly the previous process that was in place to introduce or allowing developers like myself to come in and respond to the request for interested parties in developing. And so that process, my understanding, was delayed, but now to be rebooted. That was the information that I received from the city. And so was waiting on that process again, because again, I've submitted a proposal going back to November of 2024. And according to the process that was put in place. And actually 10 of the lots which I'm ready to purchase are within the lots that Future Heights has put forth in their proposal. So my concern is how that process now is being somewhat edited, given that there was an understanding on my part that the city would go forward and reboot their request for expressions of interest. And again, I've submitted a full proposal, and certainly my business partner, Jalai Ali of Renew Flooring, we're prepared to go through that process. Again, I have an extensive background in building houses. And in my background, again, I ran a community development corporation, City of Cleveland, and it developed over 200 units of housing, scattered site, tax rated housing, you name it, over $35 million in housing. And so we've got the background. And then the only house that has been constructed, new construction in the city of Cleveland Heights, again, I worked with Start Right Development Corporation to build that house, going through another process that the city took us through to get awarded the project. And we successfully built a house on Neela View, which sold for $250,000. So I'm well aware of the process. And in terms of community engagement, that was one of the features of what we did to really work with the community to find out what was desired, to certainly add value to the community, what was affordable. We actually really introduced what we call the age in place concept. And that house is built, all the living areas on one floor. So it just really is a matter of really getting an understanding of how this legislation sort of got on top of a process that I believe other developers were waiting to move forward with. And certainly we're prepared to do that. I'm excited, certainly that developers, and we want to build, living in Cleveland Heights, we want to see that. But again, I think there's enough lots that if there's a process, we can review what is the best way to have these houses built, even in terms of the process for even allocating these lots. If there was in the original proposal, this request in determining how would you pay or what would you pay for these lots? And I think I suggested a very interesting way of valuing our lots, looking at what we see in the city of Cleveland. And certainly a lot of my experience has been in the city of Cleveland. And they look at how they determine the value of lots based on segmenting the neighborhoods. You have your market rate neighborhoods, you have your middle income neighborhoods, and you have your sort of your opportunity neighborhoods.
Okay,
And that's basically going from good to fair to poor.
okay.
I believe the same thing occurs here in the city of Cleveland Heights, whereas we have valued our neighborhoods based on a CRA rating. So your CRA rating from 0 to 4, that's your market rate area, doing well. Your CRA from at 5, that's more to the middle. And then we have the CRA rating from 6 to 10.
Mm.
And so what I suggested is that we have some methodology in determining what we would then, the city being a resident, would charge for these parcels. And based on looking at the city of Cleveland has done, and they have a price per $1 per square foot. And we can apply that same type of methodology, but edited based on Cleveland Heights being a more value city, if you will. So I think there's a lot of things to be considered. And that's what I wanted to present in my proposal in terms of rather than just awarding, which I see this is, there's certainly I'm excited that these lots are being looked at, but to just kind of just award them without any rhyme or reason in terms of how that's being done, and certainly the evaluation process, which again I can bring my team to the table and certainly demonstrate one we have already built in the city of Cleveland Heights, and certainly our background we built in other areas. So that's just really my concern as this goes forward in out of committee or through committee, that there's the question in terms of the process, and certainly because at least 10 of the lots that I'm interested in.
Okay.
And knowing full well the neighborhood and the residents. The Boulevard neighborhood is certainly the neighborhood that I'm most concerned about.
Okay. So what I hear, Tony, as a member of the planning development, that 10 of these lots in this proposal that Mr. Stone had applied for back in November
Of 2024.
of 2024. So we're holding this into committee and we're not moving it out of committee until we have Mr. Cobb. And then I think there should be a discussion with you and the planning development director and department offline with that.
Okay.
And then we will have a discussion within our committee to see what's going on.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I would, you know, as far as the process goes, I think Director Zanth is the one that could speak to that.
Oh, that's what I was saying, but I didn't know if Director Zamp wanted to do that now or
I can
later.
give a short and maybe
Thank you.
uncomfortable answer, which is we, the staff, had, based on our conversations, particularly the pricing component that Mr. Stone was talking about, had been going down this path of restarting and rebooting. The current mayor, Mayor Sarin, directed that these two pieces of legislation come forward. That's what was read into the record.
Oh.
That's what's before you today. So
Okay.
that's the short answer of why
Okay.
this is here before you today in its current form.
Okay. All right. So the mayor decided that this piece of legislation will go forward, but it's still in our committee and we'll wait to Mr. Cobb is available and next week and come back.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the additional information. All right, so let's move on to ordinance 176. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Director Zamp. I'm sorry. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, whoever's with ordinance 160. Okay, we'll move forward.
So similarly, we have a second entity that expressed interest and is being brought forward to discuss, and that's Ishmael Martin from YRM. So he's here available to speak to you. Thank you.
Oh.
Hey, good morning, Councilman.
Good morning, come on. Slide on, I come in, y'all can move around. You wanna slide around the chair? This way. So
Oh, come this way.
yeah, give him a little room at the table.
All right.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you for welcoming me to the table. Good morning, everyone. So I apologize for being a little bit tardy. I was trying to reschedule another meeting before this, but it wasn't allowed to. So my plan is to build a few homes here in Cleveland Heights, as I've done in the first ring suburbs surrounding Cleveland Heights. Shaker Heights, Maple Heights, Mayfield, Richmond Heights, all the first grade suburbs are currently built in South Euclid. And I see that over the trajectory of time, when I was graduating, high school and working my way through the process of going through college, I seen the housing market start to tumble, obviously. Some of my friends lived on these lots that are now vacant now. I remember going to their homes and, when I came back to, the city after college, it's kind of heartbreaking to see all of these homes demolished and, all the missing teeth in the neighborhood, and, all of that stuff going down. So what I decided to do is in high school, I had a personal finance class. His name was Mr. Gold. I think Larry Gold. I've been looking for him ever since I graduated. I can't find him. But he,
You going to Shaker?
yeah. Yeah, I
Oh my
graduated.
God,
Larry?
Yes.
Give me,
Yeah, I
need
talked
to
with
talk
Larry.
to Larry.
I probably, anyway, no, I can hook you up with Larry, but go ahead.
Wow.
You look familiar. What year did you graduate? It's fun. It's like.
I'm lying, let's stay on topic,
Okay,
please, sir,
all right.
thank you.
But long story short, that
We have
class,
another whole group.
Easy answer.
that class changed my life. Though. So, he taught me about, how to evaluate different companies, how to, work with the stock market. And then it was this one class, because he broke it up into segments, and it was REITs, real estate investment trusts. And that sparked my interest in real estate. I said, well, this is the direction I'm going to go with my life. So from that moment on, I started to, research. And then as I was graduating, it was like a critical mass happening. The housing market was getting ready to crash. So homes were starting to come on the market for really cheap. I didn't really have a lot of money. I was a dishwasher, so I was making like $350 every 2 weeks. So young lady I was dating, ironically, she had a uncle, and he let me make payments on my first house. So long story short, I bought a home. It was a total shell. It needed plumbing, HVAC, carpentry, windows, doors, the whole nine. And it wasn't typical plumbing. I had to dig, 8 feet into the basement to get to the main sewer line to tie everything back in. So I thought it was like, the worst thing ever. But now as I look back, it was a blessing because I learned everything from, the hardest part of construction onto the easiest part where it's painting. So fast forward to today, I went from, rentals, doing, flips, selling homes, retail, and then I went into new construction. And I said, the only way that I can make it make sense is if I do, a concentrated amount of homes in a certain area and continue to build them and bring the area up, because some people don't want to put that investment in area because there's millions of dollars I'm putting out. And it's like private financing. So it's not like, okay, well, we're not waiting for a buyer to come in and, and then build the home or anything like that. And we have, really, strict design standards that, I personally have on my company. Like, it's standard that we use 2x6 construction. It's standard that we, stick build and we make sure that we glue our bottom plates to the subfloor. We glue our subfloors to the actual joist so there's no squeaks or anything like that that's going to happen later in the future or anything like, homes settle, over time. So we want to make sure we reduce that, no matter what you use, because it's moisture in lumber. When you cut a tree down, obviously they let it dry for a certain period of time, send it to the mill, and then from that point, I'm not going to get into the weeds, but yeah. So a lot of the council members, I think, visited the first set of homes in Shaker Heights that I did. The street was kind of, in disarray. It was right by Lee Road, Sudbury Road. I think, you two came, and it was like a lot of the economic development directors came over and visited. I think Mayor Wise was there and a few others. So they see the construction of the home, and once the homes were completed, they sold right away because I'm a production builder, so I don't just wait on a buyer to come, which would leave the lot vacant. So what my goal is to do, beautify the street, and then the buyers will come. They say build it and they will come. And it's true. And I make sure that it's a reasonable price. Shaker works with me on the price of the lots because they know I'm putting so much money into the homes to build, and we want to make sure it's going to work out for everyone. Not just me, but for the end buyer who's going to be able to purchase the home. But if we, roll all of that extra money into the home, we won't be able to afford it right away. A lot of people are looking for housing right now. It's a housing crisis, but everybody wants to kind of pad their pockets. And I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at this as a something similar to a purpose, like my calling right now. I can do it. I'm young. I have plenty of time, so I want to continue moving forward. Right now, building. Well, I just built 8 on Pennington. I think y'all walked down that street before. I think Brian, Laurel walked down there too. It was just vacant lots, and now the homes are actually up and complete. So the first one will be going on the market next week, and we don't just put them all on the market to saturate everything. So we just stagger our releases. But we make sure that we have nice landscaping going in. We have open floor plan. We listen to what the neighborhood likes. If you look at the home, you can see that it's a traditional colonial home. We have ranches. We have what else? Cape Cods and bungalows, because some people want to age in place. They want that first floor bedroom with the laundry and everything on the first floor. When they may have grandkids, they want them upstairs. They all come with a full finished, not a finished basement. Some of them will be finished, but that's going to be an additional cost. But a lot of times our basements come with steel metal studs, R11 insulation on the exterior, and then R10 on the inside. And so that makes it easy for the person to not have to bring that $40,000 in to finish your basement. All they have to do is drywall and floor. So I would love for you all to take a tour of Pennington and check out some of the homes before they get sold, because I won't be able to let you in.
And how many homes you're building on 19 lots?
I was going to build all of them actually.
19?
Yeah, just 19, and then I think it's a couple lots in there that are commercial. We're going to do some multifamily on them.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, when you said the price of the lots, I was wondering why you got the parcels for $1.
There's a lot of money you have to put out there. We're not waiting on, HUD or anything like that. We're actually taking private dollars, putting those homes in the neighborhoods. People love the homes, and also, I know a lot of people don't like the timeline it takes for you to sign a contract, get your lot, find the builder, and then start building the home. That takes like over a year. So that's why we continue to, build the homes on a spec basis, and then put it out there. And, it pretty much works.
So yours completion is within 5 years as well?
Yeah, but it's gonna be, before that, I plan to build the first, if everything is approved, I'll plan to build the first half next year, beginning of next year, start, move on. If you look at the time when I actually get approved, pull my permits, and actually apply for my occupancy permit, I don't want to tell you the timeline. I want you to actually look and see. I think you can see it online in South Euclid and possibly Shaker, because a lot of people don't believe me, but it's a very quick process. We make sure that we're very efficient. We make sure that we're bringing quality projects to the neighborhood.
So you're gonna build half of those by next year? You go ahead on, huh?
I'm really building 24 in Shaker right now.
You building
So-
how many?
Yeah, 24. Yeah.
How many have you built in South Euclid?
I built, I think, 6 in South Euclid, because then they gave all the lots to Ryan homes, unfortunately.
Okay. Alright. Could you keep up with them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, you can pass it, really.
Alright,
Yeah. So, like I said, I want you to look at my permitting time.
alright.
Yeah.
I will. I'm very interested in something happening quick so that the residents see things are happening
Yes.
and moving. And I like the idea that you're building homes on vacant lots and then selling them versus one at a time. So
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that idea because it actually beautifies the neighborhood quicker.
Cranes just did an article because they couldn't believe it either. They came actually and visited the homes. They viewed the homes. They saw, first they talked to the economic directors over in Shaker. And then they said, well, you need to talk to Ishmael. I said, what do you want to talk to me for? So they came to Pennington and they saw the homes and they just couldn't believe it, because they saw when construction started, and they couldn't believe the process and where they were at right now. So the homes are, up and ready to move on to the next street. I think we're
Give me an
going to
address of one.
3693. Yeah,
Pennington.
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 Yeah, and if you just ride down the street, you'll see all of them. Ride down Sudbury, and you'll see all of the. I want to see if you can pick the homes out that were actually built. I want to Yeah, you probably, I don't know,
There's a
cause they
quiz.
fit in so well, you know, with the neighborhood, but 3691 Sudbury, and then just go from there and walk down the street.
That's my address.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
But in Cleveland Heights.
Oh,
I was with.
You was with me,
Yeah, I
okay.
knew what you're talking
You was with me, okay. So yeah, I will take a look. And you have one that's open for.
Yeah, so the stagers are actually going in, I believe, tomorrow to stage the home, so if you guys wanna set up a time to do a walkthrough, we can.
Okay, do you have a business card?
Yeah, I have a digital, I'm like a millennial, so.
I got you.
Yeah, they don't do those cards.
But I do have a digital
I have
card.
one too.
Okay.
I ain't so far back.
No.
Okay, but before you leave, we can exchange.
Okay.
All right, thank you. You have any questions?
No, well, the.
Offline,
you- yeah.
offline, you can talk about school.
Yeah, so Director Zanth, I would just take it that when you look at the records of these developers, you look at how quickly they've done other projects from the time they were awarded them and the time they got the houses up. And obviously, I mean, this isn't even really a question, it's just, it seems to me it's obvious that the records are what of their timelines make you comfortable with this.
Yeah, we did get responses from a wide variety of people, some who have never built a home in their life. And, you know, the idea here was to bring forward first, I guess, even first, those that have, you know, some experience. So that's where these two pieces of legislation sit, but also others that we're ready to bring forward when the timing or the process is right.
Okay. And you're not getting any federal funding or anything with your homes? You said yours was all privately?
Yeah, it's all private, maybe one day, but you know,
Okay.
can't wait on the cavalry to come in, we gotta kind of beat the cavalry.
All right. Like the way you talk. Okay. All right. Any more questions? Okay, so this legislation will stay in committee until, you probably heard me,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Mr. Cobb, and we'll try to make sure we have another meeting, and you're more than welcome to come back to if Mr. Cobb have any questions as well, okay?
Okay.
All right, just want to be upfront and honest with you.
Okay.
All right, good presentation too as well as both presentations. Okay, so we're gonna move forward, we're gonna move off of ordinance 175 and 176, and we're gonna go to the merchants, Noble Road merchants for updates. And if anyone who wants to leave who is connected with those two pieces of legislation, you are free to leave at this time, and Noble merchants, you are up.
Yay.
Somebody
had to say something.
Okay. You all want to come to the table?
Yeah, why don't you move up?
I like to go spread out.
You want to get spread out.
Noble,
Yeah, bags, I mean,
Noble.
and Myron knows I'm gonna talk with him.
All right, so,
Noble, two people Noble back there?
yeah,
Okay.
up here.
We can go.
You're okay, you want to
Here.
sit back? All
Okay.
right.
All right, so let's go around and introduce who's here so that the people who are watching know that we have quite a few people here from Noble
And some Taylor.
and Taylor. So we're gonna do Taylor next and then Noble. How's that? Or you wanna do both at the same time? Okay, so
We
we're
should
gonna
start with Noble just because.
Yes, we're gonna start with Noble, and I'm gonna have an update from Myra, who's been working with the Noble merchants and owners. And so now Myra, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, great. First of all, before we get started, this is not just about me. I cannot begin to tell you how much this is in a community involvement kind of situation, both with the merchants and the building owners. And I thank all of you for showing up today and sitting through this meeting. So that part's important. We have held a number of meetings with the merchants and also with the building owners, both at Noble and Taylor. And again, thank you all for showing up. I appreciate it. I'm sure that the representatives from the city do also. So the last time that we were here, Councilman Cobb had asked me to create a third budget that would take into account that the city was going to pay for all of the beautification for Noble Road. And so I have done that and I have copies of that. But what I also would like to say is that I have been in touch with Mayor Sarin at this point. And the Noble people, I think, already have this budget, so and he had mentioned at the time, Mayor Sarin had mentioned during our first presentation that beautification was not something that the city could cover for a number of reasons, including the fact that there were no insufficient personnel. The SIDS are paying for their own beautification, and that there just was no wherewithal for the city to cover this and take on the expense. Councilman Cobb still wanted me to go ahead with it, which I've done on this budget. I have spoken with Mayor Sarin since that time, and what his input was that yes, probably in some way, shape or form, the city could take on beautification, but that would mean that we would be part of the pot, so to speak, that we would be part of everything being done for the city, and that the outcome overall for Noble Road and for Taylor would not be what we would really want. That the beautification level that we were seeking would not be at the level that we're proposing in this budget. And so as you look at this budget, please take that into account. The other thing that I have learned over time is that Coventry's budget is equivalent to budget number 2 on here. And Coventry is a 1/4 mile district and we are 2.5 miles long on Noble. Very similar to what Taylor is also, South Taylor. So we're facing considerably more obstacles in both of these districts than either Coventry or Cedar Fairmount are, and with budgets that are being requested of us that are significantly smaller. So I'm objecting to that if there's an opportunity to object to that. The original budget, although it was described as a Mercedes budget versus a Honda budget by Councilman Cobb, I knew that there would be cuts in that budget and have met with planning and development and have gone through some of the cuts that would be necessitated. But I think that the overall request that we pull out beautification completely is not something that's workable or beneficial to either of the districts. So I'm leaving the budgets with you to review. The other thing I think that you should know in terms of progress that's been made, I spoke with the attorney this morning. Officially, as of now, Noble Road is a not-for-profit recognized by the state. Now, here's the caveat. This is a very strange situation which I've encountered with Cleveland Independence, the restaurant organization that I'm working with. It is also a not-for-profit by the state of Ohio, but it's a for-profit by the feds. And so I am holding off saying that we can ask for donations or do any of that. And the attorney agreed with me that we should hold off until IRS approves us. IRS is at a backlog right now. And so we are kind of on hold with applying for grants or anything of that nature, but at least we are incorporated and the state recognizes that we exist. So congratulations to the Noble people in the room. That part is done. In addition, I had a meeting yesterday with the building owners because based on what Jeremy, thank you very much, Jeremy McBride, has talked to me about in terms of the growth of his business and how he managed to transform things from Skid Row into an enterprising business in LA. I have had a meeting with Jeremy and his partner talking about this and how that fits in terms of what we need to do with Noble to transform the district. And ultimately, it was determined that I needed to meet with the building owners. There had to be buy-in in terms of not just working this as a merchants association. And it is kind of a misnomer to say this is a merchants association in both the cases of Noble and South Taylor. These are transformational efforts that we're taking on, not just becoming a place where we are going to be running a holiday special or a pumpkin fest. We are nowhere near running a holiday special or pumpkin fest. We have business to take care of. We have merchant mix to handle. We have frontage of businesses to handle. We have a lot of different things that have been happening in all of these districts, from beautification as minor as weeds in the districts to not having any snow plowing on sidewalks, not having any proper landscaping, not having proper lighting. The list goes on and on. I was very happy to find out 2 weeks ago that the city is conducting a survey in Noble, and thank you to Economic Development for doing this, which will determine a lot of things about property values and what the costs, what the capabilities are for the residents in the immediate area to have a supermarket that is one that we would be proud to have in the district. Also listings of what we believe would make this a community, which include things like a bank and a CVS or a Walgreens or some kind of drugstore, some kind of emergency situation for people who have urgent care needs, a vet, all of the basic things that go above and beyond the coffee shop conversation. And so I'm waiting for the response to those surveys. I think it's gonna be really important for us as we move forward to find out not just what the commercial businesses have had to say, but what the residents have had to say. And I understand that the survey will be completed. I was in touch with them yesterday. It should be back within a couple of weeks. So prior to moving forward and having more conversations with the merchants and the building owners, I wanna see what the results of that survey will be. That's really a lot of what we have to begin with as a foundation. So as of right now, we have 10,000, thank you Future Heights. In the bank's Future Heights is working as our agent. And so I am able to pay the attorney, who was very happy to hear that, I might add. And so
In the county for the 10,000.
yes, and
Yes.
thank you Davida Russell for getting us the 10,000. And so as we have these startup funds right now, we're at a turning point waiting to find out what's happening with the city and our funding. And so what we're here to ask you is, what is our next step? How much money is there and how can we move forward as quickly as possible?
Mr. Kuda.
I was looking at the mural cost.
Yeah.
And wondering if, and I don't know who, maybe I could ask Director Xanthus. Is there any money ARPA money that we allocated for the arts that could cover that
So if you
cost?
remember last council committee of the whole meeting, Heights Arts came and they spoke about how they were gonna be spending the ARPA money, which was gonna be Coventry and Cedar Green focus, but I believe they've had a conversation.
They have also had a conversation with me. So according to them, the trail was that they initially didn't know how the money should be allocated. They had attempted to make meetings with the mayor. It did not happen. They ended up saying, okay, well, we don't know where we should be placing the money, and gave up and said, okay, we're just gonna do it with Cedar Lee and whoever else they planned. But Noble was not part of that conversation, nor has it ever been part of that conversation.
That's what we said. That's exactly what we said.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, that's what we said.
Yeah. So, I mean, that had come up in previous meetings about the mural, and that Heights Arts was allocated with funds, and they said they made every attempt to find out through the city where the money should be going, and that it pretty much went nowhere. And I spoke with a board member.
So President Kuda, while you were out, Myra explained the budget and that she had, and I don't wanna speak for her, Myra, would you just do a recap so he understands where we are with the budget? And Mr. Copps, where you have went back several times, we've talked to the mayor. And actually, I invited the mayor to come today, but he said he was, but he's here. So we had talked to the mayor
Yes,
about
he
about the budget for the
Your
Noble
timing
Merchants.
is impeccable.
Where well, I'll let Myra recap.
Sure.
So go ahead. While he
Mayor,
was-
thank you for attending the meeting. So the original budget that was proposed I think that anybody who's done budgets for corporations or anyone understands that you ask for everything and it's pie in the sky and you expect that people are gonna cut back. And that's exactly what the first budget was. And so the mayor was in attendance at the first meeting, we went through everything, and basically the design of the budget was that it was a 3-year proposal, that the first 2 years would be picked up by ARPA funds, and the third year, the Merchants Association would pick up and pay for and take on the responsibility on its own. And that if there were any extra funds, that they would be allocated into third-year budget. And so then after that, I met with Brian Iorio, we went through it, and there were a lot of cuts that were made based on things that were just extraneous expenses. At that meeting, at the second meeting, Councilman Cobb was here. And he was the only other representative other than Councilwoman Russell. And so he had requested that I take out all of the beautification costs based on his feeling that it should be something that the city takes on. And he made that comment in the first meeting. The mayor had addressed that at that time and had said that really just wasn't feasible. And Councilman Cobb at the second meeting reiterated that he thought it was something that the city should take on. So with that in mind, just basically to do due diligence, I created budget number 3. During that time, I also had reached out to the mayor just to reiterate what had happened and to receive confirmation that his sentiment hadn't changed, that the city really could not take on the expenses that Councilman Cobb was saying that it should cover. And so, Mayor, if you would like to talk about this, I would appreciate it.
I'll clarify a little bit. I think what I'd like to first say is that I think that the city could, if it prioritized consistently sort of addressing the needs of the business district really diligently, thinking about the beautification in particular. But I don't think that it makes the most sense when it comes to efficiently dealing with all of the plantings and the mowing and the variety of upkeep that the city is working right now to get back to a capacity to handle citywide, while also being expected to focus in a very granular way on the specific beautification efforts that would be relevant to a business district. So I think the city could do it, but I think that it would be more efficiently and effectively handled more locally at the business district level. And because you guys know what you need and you are able to address issues more immediately than the city would be able to. Let's say a storm happens and plantings or something gets messed up in the business district, you guys are right there. You can address those issues, change design for events, those sorts of things. And the city would be a little bit more hard pressed to take that on in the most focused, specific way, while also addressing citywide needs. And so that's why I think it makes the most sense for the business districts to be involved in that. And if we're going to support the business district and Merchants Association would be handling the on the ground, then I think ramping them up financially is not the worst idea in the world. Especially since I don't necessarily think that we are in a position organizationally at the city level to more consistently and in a more dedicated way address those beautification needs.
So to take that a step further, and thank you for that. In my previous positions as executive director of Coventry and also Cedar Fairmount, I can confirm what the mayor is saying only because situations happen, especially in terms of snow plowing sidewalks and putting down rock salt and also limbs falling and things like that. Having me as a point person was incredibly helpful for the SIDS just because it was one person that they could call. But there were calls coming in all the time about problems with lack of watering or this looked bad or that looked bad, which I think just add more of the onus onto Public Works and Parks and Rec than they really need. I mean, I think that just puts a burden on them that they really don't need. And having it within the district and also having the merchants know that and the building owners know that there's a point person that can say, okay, look, if I call them, it's gotta be something important. It can't just be like a complaint that someone needs more rock salt in front of their building. I think that that's relevant. So I'm totally supportive of what you're saying. Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
But one more thing that I think to add to that is I know, like, council gets to make the determination about the level of funding, and sort of that budgetary question. And I don't know and can't possibly know what each individual council member would view as, this is the limit, this is as far as I'll go, I'm not willing to approve more funding than X number. And I don't know necessarily that that is the easiest question for any individual council member to ask, because it might change based on the mix of things that would be funded and what they think is more or less important. So I don't wanna pretend like you can just go to a council member and say, okay, what's your number? What's the, what's your limit here? What can you justify to yourself? But that kind of question about a general idea of a level of funding, maybe ranges or something like that, might be a way for council members to get a gauge among themselves and with you in conversation about what they think an appropriate level of funding for the Merchants Association is. And then you can sort out what things that funding should go toward and what things they philosophically, I suppose, believe should be handled in a different way. And maybe that way you can start from a base of understanding of what council's expectations and limitations are on this program. So you're not asking for something that is just not a possibility.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering how the two of you feel about this, and what you think about what the mayor just suggested.
Well, I wanna get into it, but I wanna back up just a little bit. This money would be coming from the Community Investment Fund?
It could come from the ARPA Community Investment Fund. There's 900,000 for small business assistance,
Right.
which
Is that,
the seemingly could qualify.
is that in revenue replacement or is it in ARPA? I forgot.
That's a
That's right, general fund.
General fund,
So
okay.
it can go.
So we don't have to worry about the deadline. Okay, so I remember, I wish Addie was here, but whatever. I remember there was a certain percentage that could come out for Noble and Taylor. And then the rest would, be, I guess, distributed.
So in one of the presentations, Brian might remember that we broke that out, but I don't think
I don't think it was legislative.
it wasn't legislated that way, so you have more flexibility. It was a
Okay,
proposal of how you would break it down.
all right. And so,
What is the budget that you think that would get
well, I think
everything up and running?
that you kind of eliminated this as a possibility, the
Yeah.
red line one,
Yeah.
because
It's
you wouldn't be able to take care of the
the
streetscape,
right.
the landscape, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So I would say the budget with the green in it is probably the one that we would be aiming for. That I think would be the most helpful and would also allow us to move forward. And then in addition to that, we would be able to go after grants to supplement whatever we're doing.
And
Yes.
Myra, did you say you were proposing the city provide the funding for the first 2 years of the budget?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the merchants or property owners, however it works out, then would fund the third year?
Right, and then if we
Okay.
decided at that point to investigate becoming a SID,
Mhm.
then we could have that conversation then. But the initial conversation with all of the merchants that are here was
And
that
business owners,
and
don't
business
forget.
at the time the business owners weren't, but
Yeah.
the original conversation was that because of the cost of leasing right now and the fact that Noble hasn't been receiving that much attention, it's premature for us to go jump into becoming a SID and just start out as a merchants association. So that conversation, I'm hoping, will happen once this transformation takes place, but it's premature to do that now.
So I did the math, so for the green budget, it's $315 for the first 2 years. On the red budget, it's $231 for the first 2 years.
And what you said, what?
231.
No caption.
No,
Sorry, I
she'll
can't-
not
Just like, I wasn't here when
Yeah.
this was passed out and I wanted to.
Oh, that's Myra,
No, you can.
No, he had-
There- No, you got one. Okay.
We've got copies.
Madam Chair,
Does anyone else need a copy? Mayor, do you need a copy?
I did want to at least mention, I know it's a complicated topic and sometimes a contentious topic, and I don't wanna, I'm not like being challenging in a certain respect.
No, go ahead.
But I did want to point out the what you mentioned about Noble not getting attention from like city government, for instance. I think there's more nuance there. I think that the phrase, that the statement is both correct and incorrect, depending on how you look at it. And I just wanted to point out that there are certain business districts and markets, submarkets, whether it's residential or commercial, in our city that have more or fewer advantages based on private market expectations for the profitability of ventures in various locations in our city. That's every place is like that. But what I wanted to point out that the primary issue when it comes to investment in Noble Nela or really anywhere along the stretch between Mayfield and the line with East Cleveland has more to do with private market investment than city investment. The city does put a lot of investment. There is a lot of, we're not restricting the services that we provide in the city. We're actually not. The complaints that we have in this section of the city, we got people in sections of the city where people think that there are no complaints, but there absolutely are the same complaints. It's citywide. A lot of these issues are citywide that we're trying to address. And so I wanted to clarify that there is a lot of disinvestment or lack of investment or a disparity in investment, certainly from the private sector in the variety of neighborhoods along Noble. And so what that means is that even though the city is investing time, money, so on and so forth, and attention, especially over the last 3 years, direct city attention that maybe hadn't been provided before, that doesn't necessarily outweigh the difficulty in attracting private investment. And that's a question of perception and expectation and profitability and those sorts of things in the private market. But what that means maybe is that the city needs to step up more and more in order to help create a more hospitable, attractive environment for that private investment. And that's, I think, where this funding, comes in to help allow for more activity. That's where the market study that we're doing comes in. That's those sorts of things will come in and provide some of that assist. So I think that to say that we don't invest from the public sector is not correct if it's just that statement, but it is correct if we think about the proportion of need and the level of investment. And that's where the disconnect has been. That's where we've been trying to ramp up our energy and attention.
I agree. I had a meeting yesterday with the building owners and some of the consistent problems that they're facing, definitely involving lighting of the district. And we had talked about at one point introducing lighting where it was activated as someone entered a block, which they love that idea. There are problems in the rear sections of their parking areas that are split with the city with huge potholes. I mean, there were just basic issues of lights not working, things like that, that they had approached the city about in a number of cases and nothing was done. So there is communication, there is a communication problem existing between the building owners, merchants, and the city and the police department. We talked about the fact that there's a police outpost there, which nobody's really crazy about, and they really would rather have a beat cop going there that was ongoing so that they felt that people knew that someone was on the street and walking around. They mentioned something that Cleveland Heights has nothing that it can do about, which is that the minute that you get past the border, there's a speed trap in East Cleveland that's just killing business. and making people not wanna go there. And that's a conversation that I think needs to be had with council in East Cleveland or the mayor in East Cleveland or whatever. That's not certainly something within my purview. But I think what's come out of this, at least for me, is that people feel that they have now a sounding board with the city that they're very happy about, and that they see that progress might be made, which I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, that progress might be made in the district to really change it and revamp it and not make it just a place that's got barbershops and nail salons one after the other, but really a place that's a go-to district that feels like a community. And they're missing that community down to the fact that they hate the Save-A-Lot and wanna get a good supermarket, and I know that Davita's been working on that too. But little things that we take for granted in other districts, they're missing. And that omission is causing problems with safety and all kinds of other things that's just magnified over the years to the point that they just really need help now.
It's so well said.
Thank you.
So I like the 315 and just something for you to think about.
Oh, and I should show you, we are working on a logo for the name change, and I'm just gonna pass this around because honestly, the merchants haven't really seen this either, and only a few have. So there are a couple of iterations, and I just wanted to let you know that we are working on graphics too, and it's not just been about legislation and trying to get input from the merchants.
So what's the
on
name?
different
What's the
things.
name?
NABA is the name of the district. And it is the acronym for Noble Area Business Association, which as a marketing person, when I heard that they wanted to name it that, it was like the logo's gonna be this big, that's not gonna work. And we also think that redefining the neighborhood as Naba removes the negative connotation of Noble and puts it into a Soho, NOLA kind of thing, which makes it trendy instead of just a place that you're gonna go and drive through really quickly. So hopefully we're gonna make a major transformation.
You had your hand up, Mr.
No, and I just want to say between what Myra said and what Mayor Saren said is exactly why we want to put the money in now, because when we want to approach the CID, once they see the change and that the city is doing these things, they'll be more likely to put their money up.
Yeah.
Cause right now, you know, she said she met with the building owners, and I know several building owners, I know several property owners. The city has not always been the easiest to work with, especially as far as some of the front facing, the buildings. I know previous building I was in, he wanted to do updates, there was money available, but to get the money from the city, the hoops he would have to jump through. So if these owners can see, okay, the city is serious about this, they will in turn get serious about this, because that's gonna put more money in their pockets. So I just really feel like somebody has to make a step somewhere. And at this point, I feel like it has to be the city and working with us.
There were a lot of questions yesterday about the storefront renovation program. If you can send me a link for where they should go and how they start that process, that would be very helpful, because some of them didn't know like how to begin.
I'm sure if it's okay,
Yes.
we had spoken about at the last meeting that the next time the Merchants Association meets, bringing in a bunch of different departments to talk about the various things that are going on, it seems like a great audience to be able to do that, so storefront can be fun.
Okay, terrific.
Go ahead first.
Jose.
I know both of you had your hand up, so which one is first?
Jose was first.
Jose?
I think as we'll call it a new resident of the Noble neighborhood within the last 5 years, I think that given the volume of traffic going through the neighborhood and the lack of structural investment over the last who knows how long before I came along, there's a real opportunity to turn Noble into an economic anchor that really hasn't been explored. And I think when you talk about Noble neighborhood in the context of the other neighborhoods that feel better supported, your Coventrys, your Cedar Lees and things like that, that the conversation feels heavily weighted in a way that doesn't feel healthy. You know, we have the opportunity to turn Noble into an anchor that the volume is there. The will is there. I just think the willpower to have a voice as one unit hasn't quite reached what it needed to, and that's what really we're talking about today. We could talk about details with coffee shops and lighting and all this, but the reality is the core problem that we're trying to solve here is that we can be an economic anchor with the correct investment, with the correct vision, which is why we're all here today. So that's I guess my take, really coming back to the mayor's comments about the city's investment, and the different neighborhoods that have different needs, is that we don't have to be what we are. And that I think is the real gripe, that we don't have to be what we are. We were having a conversation before you got here about the mural program and how there was money allocated through the arts program and then none of it really showed us our way, and Noble as an entity really hasn't had a voice, and time after time after time after time after time, it gets past these conversations where investment and economic drivers are being discussed, and we have no attention. And that, I think, is the crux of the problem here. We're here because we need a voice and we can be an anchor, but something has to happen there. That's my take on that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just as a small point, obviously it's a weird situation, and a lot of confounding influences, but that was kind of why I thought that it was a good idea to create an arts commission at the city level, because my expectation was that it would be a commission that could accept proposals from outside groups, like about the expenditure of public art dollars and where those things would be placed, and it would be well positioned as an advisor to the city council and to the mayor for how those dollars would get distributed in an equitable way.
Sure.
And I unfortunately it got to a point where I think the contention about the concept generally led to people just not being interested in serving on the Arts Commission. So that may be something that the council can take up and maybe do what they did with some of the other things and just convert it a little bit, so that it can be sort of more in line with the way you guys appoint to other bodies, and sort of move it back to sort of a more council focused play, and then sort of build that out and have that expertise on hand to work with, NABA, for instance, as a good example, to get public art determinations that you could rely on that advice, working with the business district, working with the merchants association, and then council can just take that information and help to execute it, instead of mulling it over. Some people on council could be artists potentially, but you can also, that's not what council's for. So having that I know that working with Heights Arts and giving public art money to Heights Arts can be useful as well, but if that's the sort of the public art and the mural project work that we're talking about.
I think more that is one aspect of it, but the point that the conversations are happening without involving Noble as a beneficiary of those, that's really the problem with all this, right? You have these large drivers of business that have their place. Coventry's great, Noble, I live by Cedar Lee Theater, they're great, but these conversations are happening without involving this very essential part of the city that feels like it's been neglected for the last 30 to 50 years. And giving credit where it's due for just a moment, I know this is a little off topic, I'll make this quick. My introduction to being engaged with this community, with Noble, was through Davida and through you. And I had met you at a Noble meeting in January of whichever year, it all comes it blends together, and so giving credit where it's due, I'm not saying that the city has not been involved, and I've loved the engagement of having this conversation. I've been to some of the streetscape stuff and stuff like that. So I think the conversation is happening now. But I think if you compare it to historical efforts, it hasn't happened. And I think that's, we could talk about the arts, we could talk about, streetscape projects and
Music
business. But we could talk about all those really amazing ideas, but the reality is that Noble has not had a voice. And these things are happening despite us in a weird way. And this is a beautiful thing. And that is why, we could talk all day about the allocation of funds, and that's ultimately why we're here. But we really need this to happen at its core. There's a clientele that needs to be serviced. There's, low income people that need help in this neighborhood. There's businesses that are struggling, and we're not going to even get into my struggles. But, there is a need in this neighborhood. And it's a large neighborhood. It's an important neighborhood. It's a lifeblood of this community at its core. And so I would say that, whether it's through council's efforts, whether it's through the mayoral efforts, whatever that looks like, whether it's through as a small business owner or property owner, my efforts, we need this conversation to move forward at its core. There's money to be spent responsibly, but the business owners, the merchants of this area are asking for a voice, and it is essential that whatever steps need to happen, because the problem isn't getting any better, and we're going to lose the opportunity for these funds. And this is mission critical. This is essential to the survival of the businesses in this area. It's essential.
So finding out,
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to echo something, and this is something that I can definitely lay at your feet. Not in a bad way.
Oh, okay.
This, like, talking about city support for whether it's a SID or a merchants association or some, effective organization that can help the businesses have sort of a more focused impact and way to communicate and work with the city. You've been talking about that since you got on council, really. And providing for city support for that as a basic idea has been something that you've been saying for a very long time. So I want to give you the credit where that's due as well.
Thank you.
But and we're at a point now, I think, where the structure is in place, the ask is in place, and I know that a lot of people have, maybe butterflies in their tummies about city finances, but again, as of June 30, we're looking at $32 million in our general fund in reserve when we've got $60 million of general fund expenditure that we're comparing it to. We've got over 50% reserve balance in our general fund. We are in a healthy place. Now, that doesn't mean that we can just spend willy-nilly on things that we don't expect to have a return.
Sure.
But it also doesn't mean that we are a profit maximizing organization where we've got to get our return next quarter or something like that. No, these are long-term investments in the long-term success, stability, and prosperity of our community and our business districts. And I think that this is one of those good examples where this is not spending, this is investment. And it will come back. It will improve the city. If we're thinking about Noble and Taylor as two areas, two stretches of road with businesses that need more support or different support than some of our other major business districts. Imagine where we would be if instead of thinking about it as sort of a drag on the city's business districts as a whole, we bring those up and eliminate the negative. Because eliminating the negative has as much return as producing additional positive somewhere else. And so I just wanted to point that out that we are in healthy financial condition. This is a place where even though we've got people who are maybe a little nervous about spending money, you have to be planful about it. You can't decide that you're going to do, a great deal of reserve spending forever. But again, I make the comparison with Shaker Heights all the time. I'm pretty sure they have a reserve policy in place where they make sure that they keep, and this is something council could do legislatively as well. Or it could be administrative if somebody wanted to. It's sort of been an informal policy that we haven't really had to call on because of our reserve level is so high. But Shaker Heights has a reserve policy of 25% of expenditures, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. So on a $60 million general fund budget, 25%, we're looking at $15 million in reserve on a $60 million general fund expenditure budget. And we're so far beyond that. We don't have to get to 25%. That's not the goal necessarily, but we've got a lot of headroom there to make these kinds of investments that we might not see an immediate financial return to the city on. But that's not the point. And so that's where I think the philosophy needs to change. The city is not a bank. We are not trying to make a profit in that way. What we're trying to do is create stable, prosperous business districts and investing in those business districts that need that investment. I think Taylor is another good example of that. The expectation of that business district revitalization project, if we can get there with Noble as well, that would be glorious, you know? So
you have a question, then I wanna make a statement, go ahead.
It's not exactly a question, but well, actually it is getting into a question. So I agree, we council, we need to revisit the Arts Commission. That was a good idea that should be executed, perhaps in a different way, but it should be executed in a partnership with the administration. When it comes to the market study for Noble, I don't know what you're gonna find now, but we live on the same street. And we've lived in the Noble neighborhood for a long time, because I've lived in 3 different houses in the Noble neighborhood. People in our neighborhood, I'm starting to see young people, I know you just see me more about, like, oh my God, last 3-4 years, 0 for the 20 years prior to that. No kids, I'm exaggerating, but not by much.
Okay.
No kids, nobody under 40. Moving in, I'm talking about. And now, I see people on my, you notice it, it's almost startling. So I don't know what the market study is gonna show, but one thing is the market in Noble it's affordable. I mean, at least in comparison to other neighborhoods and certainly other cities. And the market study might show what people my age want, I don't know. I really don't know. But we're still the predominant demographic, I think. But if what it will be in the future is a marketable neighborhood to the 30-something, 20-something, 30-something families, I hope that's, I don't know how you factor that into the data that you gather, but I'm just gonna speak for myself. We need to be seriously thinking about bringing young homeowners into Cleveland Heights. And when we're looking at the business district, I think we need to be thinking about that.
So, would you,
You see why.
so I know with you and I, that will make a committee. Would you have an issue with me asking the law director to create legislation for the 315?
I'd like to hear what Councilman Cobb has to say about this as well. But right now, having just seen it, just been having this presented, it seems like the path.
Well, I think she submitted this twice.
Yeah.
This is not the first time,
This is third time.
third time.
Right, but this middle
All of
ground,
it is the third time.
He saw the middle, you weren't at that meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
It's the
I
third time.
apologize for that.
Yeah, this is the
Alright.
third time they submitted it. That's why we're trying to say,
I mean, this seems like where we're at.
yeah. And so I would also like to offer that we match it with Taylor.
Does But Taylor doesn't have a merchants association, right?
They're in the
Yes.
process, yes.
So I can fill you in a little bit on
Go
Taylor.
ahead, yeah.
Before I do that, I just wanna say one thing. The part of the model that I spoke of yesterday with the building owners was based on what Jeremy had talked to me about, which was starting with pop-ups within storefronts so that people could see whether they thought that Noble was a viable area for them. And then convincing them through the pop-ups to then lease space, because we have a lot of space available. So getting artists in there and having activity in there, whether it's music or art or whatever we have, also draws people from other communities to realize that it's an accepting area. And so the building owners were so much for that they said, I'm gonna tell the person I sold my building to X building about this and I want them on board. And so it opened up a whole different conversation than I think had been had before, which was helpful. So I think that, to your point, that helps a lot. The Taylor situation is that we do have a merchants association. We have had a number of meetings already. The direction that they wanna take is that they already know what the name of their association will be, which is just Taylor. After we went through a number of iterations, it's only gonna be called Taylor. We are working right now to try to uniform that district so that every part of Taylor, because unlike Coventry, which is contiguous, Taylor's broken up into segments. So we wanna make sure that we have everybody from Meadowbrook to the Orthodox community, everybody involved in everything in between. I'm also talking to the developers of Severance to say, okay, we're working on this. We wanna make sure that whatever you come up with in terms of graphics or whatever doesn't conflict with what we're doing on Taylor, so that we have one long spread and everybody seems to be in the same place. So the conversation is starting with Taylor on a regular basis. And we are planning meetings on an ongoing basis with Taylor.
I like the idea of what the mayor had said as well, is basically just designating a dollar amount and having them work within that. You know what I'm saying? For the Noble area and for the Taylor area. And then that's their 2-year budget and then they know they're on their own.
I'd still like to see how, so you're saying the Taylor would break down in the same?
No. I will leave
I
that
didn't
to
even ask the
Myra.
question.
I'm sorry. No, I know you were talking about the money, but that's why when you started talking, I wanted to give it to Myra.
So
sorry.
the people from Taylor they looked at the Noble budget and they said, okay, we're gonna adapt this a little bit to what we need. And I looked at part of what they adapted and part of that still needs to be tweaked, but it's still coming out to very close to what we have here for Noble. I mean, in terms of what their needs are, it's stretch of district. We have to price out to get specifics on the landscaping and the snow plowing situation. But their situation with Taylor was they wondered in specific areas where the city has space, do we cut out that space for the snow plowing of the sidewalk, or is the city gonna cover that position? Like in front of where the school used to be, is that gonna be the responsibility of the Merchants Association on Taylor? Where are the boundaries for Taylor if there are city-owned properties along the way? And that would mean cutting down the budget because we wouldn't have to cover as much space. So I have not gone after that, and I was planning to talk to someone soon about that.
So I'll back up my statement. We'll go with the Noble and then we'll wait and see what their budget is for Taylor. How's that?
That's good.
Okay.
I would like to say something.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia Vanier, and myself and my husband, Gavin Vanier, we own a few properties on Noble Road under Manteca LLC. We purchased these properties in 2021.
Commercial or residential?
Mixed use. Commercial and, apartments, so it's mixed use. So we purchased the first building in 2021 and then a second building in 2022. And I must say, I was elated to own property in Cleveland Heights, because always growing up, Cleveland Heights was an area that people wanted to go to, people wanted to be in. So at first, I was very excited about owning property in Cleveland Heights. There were a lot of issues that we had to work through. And in the beginning, I did reach out to the Economic Development Division and sit down with them and talk about a lot of the issues that I saw that was going on in my area, such as it's a parking lot that's owned by Cleveland Heights as well as myself. and some of the other building owners along that strip. There were dumping issues that were going on there. There were issues with lighting. There's lighting in the back that is responsibility of the city and has been out for more than 3 years. These issues are brought up because there are safety issues. It's totally pitch black at nighttime. There could be drug activity going on back there. It's dangerous, it's not safe. I have, tenants, so I reached out and I said, hey, I've noticed these issues that are going on in my area. This is a shared parking lot. How do we decipher who is responsible for what part of the parking lot? There are a lot of potholes there. There are safety issues. There are dumping issues. And, I sat down and they said, hey, we're gonna look into it. We're gonna investigate it and get back to you. 5 emails later, I got still working on it. I couldn't get definite answers to the point that I had to reach out to Councilwoman Russell. Then all of a sudden, there's communication. How can we help you? What do we need? What do you need? The Cleveland Heights employees have been very helpful. They helped me put up a no dumping sign. I put up cameras and I was able to catch a neighbor across the street that was coming over and dumping trash on a property that I could get fined by Cleveland Heights if they come by and see it. I got the police involved. I even filed a police report about the light issue that still has not been fixed. It's numerous issues that were going on, that I've been trying to address, but it put a bad taste in my mouth about Cleveland Heights. Because if I'm asking you, how do we take care of these issues? How do we take care of these problems? How can you help me? What is my role? What is your role? And I'm not getting silence from a certain department. That's the same as telling me no, that we're not important. Noble is very multicultural, is very diverse. What is the difference between us and Cedar and Fairmount? Why are we being treated differently than other departments, than other sections of the city? So when Myra reached out to me and I went to the meeting yesterday, it opened up my eyes because I saw other property owners and businesses there that have been there a lot longer than me. 15, 20, 25 years. And I realized that I wasn't the only one in the same situation. They have been going through the same process a lot longer than I have. Dealing with not getting responses from the city, not getting help. A lot of them want to expand, they want to, revitalize the area, but they're getting pushback, from the city. So
Pushback or ignored?
say again?
Pushback or ignored?
Well, both. So from getting help from Congresswoman Russell, I kind of stepped back a little bit because I'm going to be honest with you. I addressed some of the issues were addressed, some still have not been addressed, but I didn't want any retaliation because I knew that in the future there's certain programs that I would apply for to try and assist because I don't live in Cleveland Heights, but I own property there and I care about the neighborhood and I care about the community and I don't want to be known as someone that doesn't take care of their property. I care about the business people there. I have a tenant that came to me as a homeless through the CMHA program that was homeless. She's been with me 2 years. I have, another tenant that has a form of autism. So I have a business owner that has an autistic son that is nonverbal. So I care about the businesses that are renting from me, and I want to uplift that environment and bring it up. So, I heard the mayor talk about different things about they don't invest, that they do invest all over the city. I didn't see it with those streetlights that's been non-functional for 4 or 5 years. I didn't see it there. I have a side of Cleveland Heights where they don't even come and cut their side. The people dump trash over there. I pay someone to come out twice a week to kind of clean up the area. So these ARPA funds, they're needed. So I don't understand why there is a question Like, we talk about it, we have some more talking about it. No, this is something that needs to be addressed now. Because now I understand why it's been a high turnover in property owners selling property in Cleveland Heights. You know, there's a lot of issues that are going on with my building that I'm working on fixing, but I understand why they left. Because they're being ignored and they're not being addressed. On this agenda, I see all these things that say, what stands out to me, it says emergency measure. Noble and Taylor should be an emergency measure.
I agree. And I would agree as well.
And what I'm saying to you is that myself and my husband, I'm not gonna sit quiet anymore. My name is Alicia Vanier. My husband's name is Gavin Vanier, and we're Mantika LLC. And going forward, you're gonna know who we are because I'm not gonna stay quiet about these things that are affecting not only me, but other business owners. And as both my husband and I are disabled veterans, we're combat veterans that served in Iraq, I think we're tired of hearing the answer no. We need a yes.
Or wait.
Or wait. We need a yes. And we need it not tomorrow. We need it today.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know all of this conversation will continue. If there's anything that I can do in the interim to address some of the concerns that you have not been able to get satisfaction on, I'd like to help out. But I did want to mention this. I think that the creation of a merchants association or a SID or some sort of organization that helps to speak for the businesses, helps to speak for the building owners is extremely useful in communicating in a concentrated way with the city government. That collection of disparate, entities into one consolidated way to communicate with us is extremely helpful. But it does not always lead to success. And I'll tell you from my experience, we have been communicated to by the SID over on Cedar, the Cedar Lee SID, about this particular issue for a very long time. And I have been very clearly communicating my expectations to, I guess there's been a little confusion that I've been trying to fix when it comes to who repairs what city infrastructure in this organization. But I've been trying to fix lighting in Cedar Lee for the last 3 years. And I have been unsuccessful even when my directives are very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I can't fix the lighting myself, There are certain things where I have asked for things to be done and I have found myself having to do it, personally because of a variety of reasons, probably including staff capacity, and that is the number of staff and the number of staff who know how to do the damn thing. And so the situation that you're talking about lighting is, and that's what I mean by these complaints are shared across, but there are other business districts that are more established in certain ways, have more access and have had more access to city government. And so there's more familiarity with certain things and people. And that can help to ease the way in ways that aren't intended to be biased.
Mm-hmm.
But they wind up having that disparate impact because sometimes it's not about X demographic or Y demographic directly, but it can be about the bias of familiarity. If this is the person that you are more used to seeing and talking with, then you're probably going to be a little bit more helpful. It'll just be easier, the conversation, because there's a shared language and understanding and history, so on and so forth. But when it comes to something like that, I have been trying to get lighting repaired in Cedar Lee seriously for years. The elevator in the parking structure in Cedar Lee has been broken damn near my entire term. I've been trying to get it fixed. We get it fixed, it breaks again. I try to get it fixed again, so on and so forth. And it's been a hassle. It is a function of the ongoing repair, restructuring, and capacity building work that we need to do in this city government in order to be able to affect those things more positively. I'm hoping that the continuing migration of public properties as a division out of Parks and Rec and into Public Works, which is something I've been preparing for a long time, continues after I'm gone, because I think that will make it a lot more efficient for all of you to reach out to people who can actually get the work done in a more efficient way, because Parks and Recreation isn't really well suited to handle those sorts of capital issues. But that's all background stuff that is supposed to help in the future, but doesn't necessarily help right now. And so I appreciate that, but I don't think, like I said, I do not think that the city has appropriately invested over the years or provided appropriate attention over the years relative to the amount of the hole that's left that the public sector needs to fit into in that business district. So I agree with you. I do wanna mention that, these complaints are shared, so it's not just targeted, but it is something that we have an even greater responsibility to address along Noble than we do in other places.
Thank you, I really appreciate
Could you
that.
give him your address where the lighting is out, so maybe he could actually see if he could fix it?
Shimmy up the pole.
Yeah, 2548 Noble Road. And I appreciate that, but like I said, one of my main concerns is just being ignored. Not even say, hey, just how you explained it to me, instead of sending multiple emails and not getting a response and have to escalate it to the level that I did, it makes me feel like, let me not just say anything. Because why should I have to escalate it to that level to say, hey, these are things that we're working on across the board. And it's not just you, the funds haven't been allocated or whatever the case, just a response back.
Thank you all so very much. We're going on 12:27 now, 12:30. I understand you have one question or one thing to say, and then we're gonna wrap it up if that's okay with everyone. Yes.
Just a comment about the police on Noble. When this gets pushed through.
We can't hear you.
When we push everything through for NABA, I believe that beat cop would be more effective than police sitting there trafficking tickets. Us as business owners, people that live around there, we need somebody to walk around to see what's going on when it might be a fight escalating or anything of that nature that's happening, maybe robbing, because when they're moving around, a lot of those things are lesser. It's, of course, with the lighting being a situation too, once the lights get up and things of that nature, the traffic is gonna slow down anyway. We don't need cops there just ticketing people for speeding. We need them there to keep us safe. And, I just wanted to make that a statement.
Hold on one second, I'm gonna end our meeting. So President Kuda and I are in agreement that I'll have Director of Law, Director Hannah create some legislation for the $315,000 for NABA, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
For NABA. And we will try to put that as an emergency measure.
Well, let's be clear about what that means.
I know, we know, I'm doing.
It doesn't, okay, go ahead.
No, I know it doesn't, everybody knows it doesn't mean, I'm using it in the term of what you meant it to be.
Yes.
As it is something that needs to move quickly, not to be slow. So I'm just saying to you, and we understand here what the emergency measures means, the 30 days after legislation or whatever.
Just keep in mind in terms of speed that they're probably gonna need a budget amendment in order to accommodate.
I'm sorry?
There's probably gonna be a need for a budget amendment just to make
Yes.
sure we're all on the same page in terms of speed. In order to.
That's important
where
we're talking about speed.
Could you do that?
Yes.
I imagine that'll be something that somebody needs to
Oh, okay. Well, you're here till when?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that it's up to me entirely, but my understanding of the schedule right now is that the Board of Elections meets on the 25th of September in order to vote to certify the primary election, at which point, according to the law director, there is, I guess, a 5-day waiting period after that vote.
So you have to about October.
October 1 is what he talked about, so it's possible at the next council meeting that some sort of movement could be had, but that's up to you guys.
Is that good?
Yeah, if we can get the budget adjustment and paperwork.
Budget adjustment.
I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Thank you very much. So we can get the budget adjustment, that would be a beautiful thing for you. Thank you. We can get that done and I can talk to the law director today. I'll go downstairs. Maybe you could go with me.
Okay.
And just talk about what the budget is and we can bring it up maybe at the next council meeting, if possible.
I believe there's
Sir?
a budget amendment. So I'm assuming we're talking about ARPA here, or are we not?
Talking about that 900,000
Yeah.
and using,
Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a budget amendment on, I believe, Monday's agenda, which is a ARPA budget amendment. I don't believe it includes the 900,000, but it could be included on the floor maybe.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
No, it's mostly for the HPO home rehab programs out of ARPA.
that was designed to be revenue replacement as well.
Right. The general fund revenue replacement.
So we can add the 315 to that.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I would add the whole
we
900,000.
can't, like,
Yeah.
the administration can't do it, council has to add that, because we're passing that one.
Yeah,
We can provide the information,
can-
I mean,
But
yeah,
that's what I'm saying, we can amend the agenda
Yeah.
to that, okay.
We'll just amend the budget adjustment,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, and then we can try to do that on the 15th.
did we get the there was $45,000 or something like that for an administration fee for somebody, a consultant to kind of.
That's not, so there's another 300,000, that's bucket 1, which means it has to be spent by 2026. That's
Yeah, I'm not talking about that.
that's contracted with UBIZ. They get the administrative fee to.
And do they have any kind of list of recommendations that they did by, or I thought that was part of what was coming out of
That is
it.
part of what they're working on.
Yeah,
It's
love to see that.
it's kicking off.
Let me,
Yeah, okay.
That's the one you're talking about for the businesses?
Yes.
Yeah.
And specifically for Noble and Taylor.
Yeah.
there was a question with the group. Does the building renovation project end in 2026? Is that money no longer available after that?
You mean the Nobility Court project, is that what you're saying?
No,
Storefront.
storefront renovation project.
Oh, that's been an ongoing.
Oh,
It's an ongoing program, but
Yeah.
it depends on the annual budget and how many projects we.
Oh, okay, all right, because there were questions about that even now.
I think
But
you,
Milk is in the program, right?
Yeah.
you want to get in the program as well, correct?
Yeah.
So check with,
With Brian.
yes.
Julie and Fallon.
Oh, Julie, I'm sorry.
Julie, okay.
Both of them want to get in the program.
Me as well.
Oh,
I have my paperwork done, I just haven't submitted it.
okay, right. All right. So if there's nothing else to come before planning and development, seeing none, you have something? Nope, seeing none, all in favor, we are now adjourned.
I'm in favor.
You're in favor?